When you think of unbelievable wealth today, your mind probably jumps to names like Musk or Bezos. But the blueprint for that kind of power, it wasn't written in Silicon Valley. To find its origin, you have to go way back to the man who didn't just play the game, he literally built the entire stadium. And that's really the heart of this whole story. It's not just about getting rich, it's about fundamentally changing what wealth even means. An absolute shift in power, engineered by John D. Rockefeller, who went from being the son of a traveling salesman to, well, arguably the most powerful capitalist in history. So how on earth did he do it? Well, the first piece of the puzzle is the man himself. This wasn't about luck, and it definitely wasn't about being born into money. It was about a mindset, a total obsession with creating order in a world that was pure chaos. And this is so important. Rockefeller didn't come from a wealthy family. His power was built on discipline. I mean, while other kids were out playing, he was keeping a personal ledger, tracking every single penny he ever earned or spent. And look, this wasn't just about accounting, it was his entire worldview. He saw the world as one giant system that he could make more efficient. Okay, so let's picture the world he's stepping into. The mid-1800s oil rush was the very definition of chaos. Seriously, think of the gold rush, but make it dirtier, way more dangerous, and incredibly wasteful. That was the early oil industry. Everyone else was just frantically digging holes in the ground, hoping to strike it rich. They saw all the value buried under their feet. But Rockefeller, he saw something totally different. He saw chaos. He saw waste. Barrels exploding, transport leaking, just zero efficiency. And that's when he realized the real power wasn't in finding the oil. It was in controlling it. His strategy was so simple, it was genius, and it was brutally effective. He said, forget the gamble of drilling. Let other people do that. He was going to focus on the 3 pillars of control: refine the crude oil, transport it efficiently, and then sell the finished product. He wasn't building an oil well. He was building a complete pipeline of profit from start to finish. And from that simple strategy, he built his masterpiece, Standard Oil. And let me tell you, this wasn't just another company. It was an economic machine designed for one single purpose: total and complete domination of the industry. 90%. Just let that sink in for a second. At its absolute peak, that's how much of the entire U.S. oil market Standard Oil controlled. This wasn't about getting a piece of the pie. Standard Oil was the pie. A single company owned the fuel that was just beginning to power the entire modern world. So, how do you get to 90%? Well, through a systematic and frankly ruthless campaign. Standard Oil moved like this unstoppable force, just absorbing everything in its path. He'd buy out his competitors, often for pennies on the dollar. He seized control of the pipelines, the very arteries of the industry. He dominated the refineries. And when you have that much control, guess what? You get to set the price of oil for the entire planet. But here's the thing. That kind of power doesn't go unnoticed. Eventually, it creates a very powerful enemy. And for Rockefeller, that enemy was the United States government itself. The public, the politicians, they started to get terrified of this one company holding the entire economy in its grip. It was shaping up to be a showdown for the ages. So all through the late 1800s, the public outrage just gets louder and louder. Newspapers are calling him a tyrant. Finally, by 1909, the whole fight lands in the Supreme Court. 2 years later, the decision comes down. Standard Oil is an illegal monopoly. It had to be broken up. It looked like the end of the empire. Or so everyone thought. But this is where the story takes an unbelievable twist. The government's big plan to take him down, it backfired spectacularly. See, they broke Standard Oil into 34 smaller companies, but Rockefeller got to keep his shares in all of them. And as those new companies, you might have heard of them, Exxon, Chevron, Mobil, started competing with each other, their total value went through the roof. Just look at this. The one thing that was supposed to break his power made him exponentially richer than he had ever been before. It's insane. And this brings us to what might be the most fascinating part of his story: the deep, deep contradiction in his character. I mean, how do you even begin to reconcile the ruthless monopolist we just talked about with what he did next? He became the single greatest philanthropist the world had ever seen. It turns out that behind the titan of industry, there was this quiet, deeply religious man. And just as he had systematically engineered a business empire to make his fortune, he then turned that same precise, methodical mind to the task of giving it all away. And he didn't just write checks. No. He built systems. He founded world-class institutions like the University of Chicago. He created the Rockefeller Foundation, which became the model for modern global philanthropy. His funding for medical research helped wipe out diseases and literally saved millions of lives. He applied the cold logic of empire building to the project of human progress. So even after the breakup of Standard Oil, even after he turned to philanthropy, the story still isn't over, not by a long shot, because the Rockefeller name and the influence that came with it, it didn't just disappear, it transformed. The family's power just evolved. It wasn't about owning every barrel of oil anymore. It became about shaping the very framework of the economy itself, what you might call America's economic skeleton. So the influence just shifted. It moved from the raw material, from the oil itself, into the worlds of high finance, banking, massive real estate projects like Rockefeller Center, and even global institutions. The family learned how to use a different kind of power, one that was more subtle, but maybe even more powerful. John D. Rockefeller engineered a system of power so profound, so fundamental, that its echoes are literally all around us today, baked into the very structures of our world. Which leaves us with one final big question. Did his empire ever really end? Or did it just become the foundation that all of us are standing on right now?